This is a good fish.
That's a good fish. There we go.
There's a snapper. Nice. Because the Raglan fishery is so underfished, there is always a chance to get out there and get that big one. This time of the year, the big mooches are generally in the shallows around the reefs. There's very few reefs out Raglan way, so you've got to be patient. We love catching gurnard on the west coast because they're a really good size. They're generally always around where they're a snapper, pretty much hard on the bottom, and they're delicious. I have a bit of a rule on my boat that we release fish 10 pound and over. They're a big breeding fish. They're not that nice to eat. We'd rather catch some smaller pannies. When we head out to target some snapper or gurnard, the dropper rigs that I make up, they work well on the west coast. So we do run lures every now and then, but there are times when they just will not work. So make sure you take some bait just to get that feed. The dropper rigs I make up are 60 pound fluorocarbon, and I tend to put a couple of lumino beads here and there on them, just down deep. That's pretty dark. And the fluoro beads, lumino beads, they tend to attract the fish. The 7-bar hook generally hooks them in the corner of the mouth, and we can release them quite easily if they're oversized. Because the west coast is such a flat area, there's very little foul, there's very little structure out around there. It's quite hard to find a spot that actually works time after time. So if you're new to fishing on the west coast, while you're heading out looking for somewhere to fish, just keep an eye on your sounder, see what's working on the bottom, and when you get to something that looks good, mark that spot. When you go fishing next time, you might cross another spot and that looks good there, so you'll fish that. So you mark those spots, and over a period of time, you build up a library of what works and when it works. Raglan is a very good fishery that's so handy to so many people. Yet they don't use it, probably because of the bar.
Tango 9387 Coast Guard Radio, go ahead.
Now we have 4 POB, we're about to cross the Raglan bar back into the harbour. We'll give you a call on the inside.
Hey Roger, Coast Guard Radio out.
The bar is to be treated with a lot of respect. Talk to the locals, get some knowledge, go with people that have done the bar. Coast Guard, they run 2 courses a year out of Raglan. They advertise it on their Facebook page or their website, and they take you out. They do a course in the Coast Guard office, and then they'll take you out on the bar and do some practical stuff. When you plan a trip out to Raglan, you're best to get onto a couple of really good forecasts and advisory websites. You're best to cross the bar on an incoming tide and sort of mid-tide up to high tide. When the least amount of water is moving really is the best time. And the bar is going to change with the moon, so take that into account, with the gravitational pull of the moon, etc. So obviously the full moon is a good fishing time, but it does bring the swell up. But yeah, there's days around where the bar is like the lake. The fishery out there is seasonal, like everywhere. Snapper, gurnard and kahawai are predominant, even kingfish, predominant all year round. So you can get the odd spot out in Raglan where you start catching quite a few sharks. If you do find that's the case, just move to another spot because they won't go away. I started fishing 25 years ago with some mates from Raglan, and they were running these little boats with these little 90 horsepower Yamahas, and they got thousands of hours out of these boats, fishing, skiing, and it was just because of regular servicing. They looked after it when they got home, they flushed it out, and that really convinced me to run Yamahas in the future if I was going to have a boat. When I had the opportunity to buy a boat and set it up, I had no option. I was going to run Yamahas, and that was the way forward for me. My history with Rollos, I've always had very good service from them. So I've bought 2 boats off them and had them both powered with Yamaha motors. Very, very happy with the boats I've bought, the Senators, and even more so with the motors and the reliability of the motors that I've had. Looking after your motor and your boat obviously gives you the reliability that you want out of it while you're out at sea. And having your motor serviced regularly, depending on the hours you do, but at least once a year, even if you only do 10 hours a year, you don't know what's going on as that motor is sitting. You don't want the impeller blades to go hard, so get it serviced at least once a year and you know it's going to be reliable. If you're doing a lot of hours, then service it as it comes up on your service reminder. For you guys that fish the Gulf and the East Coast, and you find the easterlies are really getting you down, you know Raglan's going to be cranking. It's going to be a great place to get out. It's going to be calm and you're going to have a great time. So my best advice is before coming to fish out at Raglan, do a Coast Guard bar crossing course. They run a couple of courses a year. It gives you all the information you need, a small amount of practical experience, and it'll give you confidence, which when you cross the bar, you'll enjoy your fishing a lot more.
Over Mike Tango 9387, good afternoon, this is Coast Guard Radio, go ahead please.
Yeah, good afternoon Coast Guard, we're safely back inside the Raglan Harbour, thanks for your watch today.
That's all received, you have a very good afternoon, Coast Guard Radio out.